Darby, and this is a Hexayurt. It is a refugee shelter that was designed by Mr. Vinay Gupta, who I have with me here.
Hello, and welcome to the What, How, and Why of Hexayurts. I'm Vinay Gupta of the Hexayurt Project and Progressive Building Solutions. This is the Hexayurt that we built at Entheon Village in 2006. It's actually two Hexayurts joined together, and you saw a little clip of the interior and exterior of the building at the beginning. The Hexayurt itself is a refugee shelter which is designed specifically for desert environments, although it can be adapted for others. So it's got a lot of benefits for Burning Man, such as it's very cool in the daytime, it's very resistant to dust storms, and it's also warm at night, which is kind of a nice touch. For refugees, refugees have all the same basic survival needs that anybody does. It's just that they're often in relatively rugged areas for 10 or 20 years of their lives, sometimes longer. So there's a real need for the shelters that they're provided with to last a long time and to be relatively comfortable, because this is, a big chunk of these people's lives. This is the basic Hexayurt, and you can see it's made from 12 sheets of a standard board material. 6 are used for the wall, and 6 more are cut in half for the roof cone. It's a very simple design, and there are a bunch of different sizes you can make them in, some smaller, some larger. There are 6 steps to building a Hexayurt for Burning Man this year. Source the materials, cut and tape the panels, do a dry run at home, transport your Hexayurt to the playa, assemble it on site, and then take it home and store it for reuse next year. We'll go through those steps one by one in a minute. In terms of the time and money required to do this, it's going to cost about $500, about a day of time to prepare at home, and then on the playa it's going to take a team of 3 or 4 people an hour or 2 to put together. And that, it's a significant investment, time and effort, but it is totally worth it, because once you get to the playa, you come home to something like this rather than to a tent, and it's great. It's a little house, and it's cool in the daytime, and you can sleep, and yeah, it's quite nice. You can see around the back we've got Supply Tech furniture. I think that's a bench, maybe. You can see there's this nice high archway. I think that was designed by Ranger Dooney Dan. So yeah, it's a good thing to do. So let's run through the steps, starting with the materials. This is the material we used to use. It's called Tafar, and we don't recommend you use it anymore because it's not really its fire performance is a little shady. So if you're going to build a Hexayurt, find something that is strong, appropriate to build with, and has good fire performance, and is otherwise, safe and appropriate. Candidate materials you might want to look at: honeycomb cardboard, Thermax HD, which is a lot like Tafar but is much heavier and much stronger, and it's really quite a good material. And if you go to the main website, hexayurt.com, there should be a link to some discussion groups where people are talking about the materials they want to use. This is the tape that we use. You can see it's quite broad. That's actually 6 inches, and it's got reinforcing filaments that run in both directions. It's called bidirectional filament tape. That one is very close to a material called 3M8959, which is a really good tape, but is very expensive. You can find tapes which work pretty much the same way for about $30 a roll. If you do want to use a 3-inch tape, which you can pick up at places like Office Depot, you have to tape the building very carefully. You have to put in all 12 tape anchors, and you have to be very precise. You can make it work, but in general I recommend 6-inch tape. Other things you're going to need: tarp for the floor, tent pegs, all kinds of other bits and pieces that, something to keep the door closed. Check on the website for a complete list. Okay, second step, taping the panels. When you're cutting the panels, it's basically a straight diagonal cut across the board. Again, you can see plans online, and depending on what you're working with, you're going to use a craft knife or a saw. Don't cut panels on the playa. It's a very moopy activity. You don't want to do that. So taping the panel edges is also something that's done partly for moop control, and also to protect the panels against water and to give them a little additional strength. Here's what you wind up with once you've taped all your panel edges. This is a ready-to-go Hexayurt. So, do a dry run. It's very important to do this before you get to the playa so that you've got a sense of what you're doing. When you're doing the dry run, you can actually skip some steps to make the assembly faster. Transport to the playa, The biggest thing to remember is that roof racks are really hard on panels. The combination of wind stresses and vibration tends to be pretty tough on the materials. You also might want to use a sheet of plywood above and below the Hexayurt package, sort of strapped together to protect the Hexayurt panels from bike pedals or your dome poles and this kind of thing. Quite important. Okay, assembly on site. We're going to show you some videos here that go through the process, but first let's just identify the parts of the Hexayurt. The roof cone is the piece you build first, then you put the walls together and you lift the roof cone onto the walls. The tape anchors, which actually hold the building onto the ground, are built as part of the roof cone process, and the strap of tape that attaches the walls to the roof is called a tension ring, and that's really what gives the building its structural integrity. The way the building is arranged, most of the primary loads that actually hold the building together are carried by the tape and not the panels, and that's part of the reason that the Hexayurt is so strong. It does take a bit of skill to do the full assembly. I mean, it's not a difficult process, but it's definitely something that you're going to learn, ideally from another person. It's good to see it done, up close a time or two. And here's us putting one together in, again, 2006. So let's take a look at the process of making the roof cone, and there's another couple of video clips behind this. So the older way of making tape anchors works if you don't have the plastic pipe, which is you fold the tape over onto itself like this. Once, then twice, and what that does is this is exterior, so it's not sticky. It's folded over. You fold it over a second time, then fold it, and what it creates is this pocket, this tube that goes all the way across the thickness of the tape but isn't sticky on the inside, and that's what you would put the rope through. The reason we use the plastic pipes is because if you just do that, what you can get is point loading at the edge of the tape, so the rope will tear through the tape a line at a time. So it's better to actually make a proper anchor with the pipe, but if you don't have it, it still works. And then we stick this sticky side to sticky side, then up over the anchor and down the other side. And that's what stops this from unrolling under load. You just pop a little plastic tube through, and when the time comes when we actually guide the building down, the rope just goes through here down to the tent peg, like that. So that becomes what sits at the base of the building, and then the tape goes all the way up over the peak and then down the other side. And that's where it gets its structural strength from. Okay, hang on a second, try and get that lump out if you can. Yeah, very good. Got enough of the gas. So do you want to come? Now, finishing the roof cone is a slightly different process to assembling the other parts of the roof cone, because when you're putting most of the roof cone together, you stand in the position where you're going to put the panel after the one you're working on. So you sort of work your way around the roof cone until you get to the last panel, and for the last panel there's no place to stand in order to put the tape onto the panel properly. So you have to use a different technique for the last one.
So keep it very taut and high. Got to pull tight, very tight. That's it, that's it. More to this side. Okay, and lift a little. Okay. Okay, pull tight, very taut. Okay, and down. There we go.
Once the roof cone is actually on top of the walls, then you tape it together.
Okay, rotating clockwise.
Yeah, so this is going to count.
Do you want us to kind of help guide you over? We're going to rotate.
No, we are.
Okay.
So what you've done, you mean about having people, you rather people just
Yeah, that's had the same issue. It's a two-story Hexayurt coming together. The Pentagon demonstration.
Hold it right there, we need a photo. Wait, go back, we missed it. Hold it right there, we need a photo.
Two sheets stacked horizontally, it'll give us 8-foot wall height. Standing room wall to wall.
There are lots of other little tricks that make this go smoothly, so it's worth watching the long videos that really go through the process in detail. So for the final step, take your Hexayurt home and reuse it next year. If you build with good, strong materials and you don't take it down too roughly, I think you should be able to get many years of use out of your Hexayurt. One more thing. The Folding Hexayurt is a commercial edition of the Hexayurt that's being built by Progressive Building Solutions. The hope is that we're going to be able to distribute these to non-governmental organisations and disaster relief agencies like FEMA, state FEMAs, and also to burners. So I'm going to show you some footage of a pre-production prototype at University of Eindhoven, and then we can talk a little more about how this works. You can see that the roof cone comes as a single pre-taped package, and you just kind of pop it open, and then you follow the rest of the same assembly steps that you do with the Hexayurt, where you lift it onto the walls, tape it in place, and then anchor it. We're hoping that you'll be able to pick up units close to or even on the ply. The pre-production prototype takes about 5 minutes to put up, maybe 10 if you count the time it takes to actually get it tied down. If you'd like more information, progressivebuildingsolutions.com is the website, or you can send email to justingza@aol.com. justingza@aol.com. So I'd like to say thank you very much to everybody who shot the footage that we used for this video. And finally, if you're interested in building a small Hexayurt to get a sense of how the system works, Google for Woody's Pup Hexayurt, which is a very simple way of making a scale model of a Hexayurt out of a single sheet of just about any material. It costs about $10 or $20 to do, and it gives you a real sense of how the building system works and how the pieces fit together and just what the Hexayurt is. So it's a great place to start if you think you might want to build one for this year. Start with one of Woody's Pup Hexayurts, and then when you get to the ply, you can use it to keep your coolers cool. Take care, and thank you very much.